can boil down being a consultant to one skill, because at the end of the day, since not all Salesforce consultants are created equal and neither are their solutions,
sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
So I am hoping to help both sides understand a bit better in an effort to make this transition from buying Salesforce to using Salesforce a bit smoother. Not only for the people who use it, but for the people who help with it. Sorry to interrupt myself and you and I on this adventure to learn something new, but I just needed to stop us for a second and say, if you love this content and if you found it helpful, I have an entire collection of awesome stuff that if you stick around to the end of this video, I'll tell you exactly how to gain access to that. It's basically just stuff I can't share on YouTube. There's a ton of free asset downloads as well as some thought exercises to help you optimize your Salesforce CRM. Now, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Sales to the Force. My name is Alyssa Schaefer. I am your host. I'm a senior Salesforce consultant for 10 years. However, I do want to mention that this channel is in no part having to do with my actual job. This is something I am doing separately. You want to know why? Because after 10 years of helping people with Salesforce, you know what I've learned? That the folks that want to get into the Salesforce consulting world really have no idea what they're talking about, and folks that need help with Salesforce also have no idea what they're talking about. And so I am hoping to bring just some foundational knowledge to the marketplace so everyone can start being a little bit more informed about what Salesforce consulting actually is. Because guess what happens? Every single one of you invested in Salesforce. Super. Then what? You know what happens is Salesforce tells you, here's this great tool. It's going to solve all your problems and you're never going to want ever again, right? It's this lovely rainbow. They're amazing at sales, don't get me wrong, but they don't necessarily tell you what happens after the fact. And why I have a job and job security forever is because what happens afterward is through an implementation of Salesforce, meaning that you aren't using it one day and using it the next, somebody goes, okay, well, this is how you should set up your Salesforce. Sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't, because I was a bartender for a decade and every single person who has ever had a cocktail mixed for them knows not all bartenders are created equal. They're not all good at it. Even though it's putting stuff in a cup, it's kind of like, well, okay, like some people do that better than others. And that's the exact same thing with Salesforce consulting, Salesforce implementations. And, to be honest, and, not going to make any fans at Salesforce for saying this, but they don't necessarily care if your Salesforce is set up correctly, which is where I come in and have job security, right? Because at the end of the day, since not all Salesforce consultants are created equal and neither are their solutions,
sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
That's where this giant variable comes into place. Because guess what? If you're watching this video and you're like, oh my God, my users hate Salesforce, then you already know what I'm talking about. Because either you took on that role, and for the record, you already had as a business owner, you already had a job, and then somebody was like, by the way, we need you to system administrate our Salesforce instance, not knowing that that's an entire job in and of itself, right? So you're brand new being like, flip, I gotta learn what the heck I'm doing before I even do it. And then and then it takes me forever to actually do it because I'm gonna make videos about that too. How to find information on Google is a hilarious undertaking in and of itself. Trying to find the right answer when there's hundreds of right answers. Good luck with that. But anyway, off on a tangent. My point is that I am making this channel so that not only Salesforce consultants that are new to the game can understand a little bit more about how this game works, and also if you're a Salesforce user and you're a business owner that uses Salesforce, you can use this channel to gain some insight into how to find the right help. Because guess what? if your bartender doesn't know how to make a Manhattan properly, and for those of you out there that are diehards, you know exactly what I'm talking about, you're going to be pissed off by the end result. And I am here in the hopes that I could maybe get that number just a little bit lower, because by the time people get to me, they're like, Salesforce sucks, Salesforce doesn't work, like all this stuff. And I'm like, no, you don't work. And sorry, not sorry, harsh reality of this whole thing. So this video in particular is about Salesforce Consulting 101. Now, this video will be helpful for new Salesforce consultants to really understand what being a Salesforce consultant actually is. This will also be really helpful for folks who have Salesforce that are maybe shopping around for a Salesforce consultant so that you know what to look for. Because, like I said, just because you're hearing a great sales pitch, like, you know, a bartender, oh, you would like a Manhattan? What kind of bourbon would you like in there? What kind of whiskey do you want? Oh, do you have a preference on up or on the rocks? I haven't been a bartender for a long time, so excuse my, like, I'm a little rusty on that side. But the point is that by asking the right questions, you're going to know how often, like, if this person has done this more than once, they're going to be asking you the right questions. If this person is brand spanking new, they're going to be asking you very different questions. So I am hoping to help both sides understand a bit better in an effort to make this transition from buying Salesforce to using Salesforce a bit smoother. Not only for the people who use it, but for the people who help with it.
1 hour later.
All right, let's dive in. All right, guys, so I can boil down being a consultant to one skill. And everybody who just heard that, who wants to be a Salesforce consultant, or even somebody who is like listening about shopping around for a Salesforce consultant, just went like, one? That's it? Just one? And the answer is yes. Salesforce consulting is one skill. That's it. And I'm going to tell you exactly what it is, but first let's lay the foundation of how you even get comfortable enough to understand this one skill. Because the reality is the skill I'm about to share with you is, in essence, an attitude, or so attitude maybe has a negative connotation in that you come and you're all like sassy, like, yeah, your Salesforce sucks. No, it's an attitude in the delivery and the tone and how you consult. Because consulting is not necessarily like a calculator where like you put 2 + 2 and then you're saying, okay, it's 4. Consulting is about intaking the information they are saying to, and you're saying, okay, well, do we +2 to that? Or are we going to +4? Are we going to +8? And then to determine what the real outcome is. Because what happens with Salesforce consulting is everybody comes to the room thinking they know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on. Not even the consultant knows what's going on. And that's why the skill I'm about to teach you is the number one and pretty much the only skill a consultant needs on day one. And it'll get you really far until you actually have the capacity, which at that point you'll still be like using this skill, but in a totally different way. So with that being said, let's rewind to my first day as a Salesforce consultant. So, and we won't even call me a Salesforce consultant. What they call you is a project manager, which is a fancy word for scheduler and number tracker. In the traditional sense of project management, it means that you're in charge of milestones. You're pre-planning how things are going to be executed. You have the entire goal in mind. And for whatever reason, when you first start out in the Salesforce world, they diminish that down to being like a little policeman and being the scheduler, which for the record is actually a really hard job, because trying to get multiple stakeholders in a room at the same time is actually really hard, and everybody changes, like, never plan on scheduling something once. You got to schedule it and reschedule it. And then on top of that, when you're a great consultant, then you have just as many meetings as everybody else in the room. So more often than not, I am the hardest person to schedule with. So sorry if I just made a noise there. So the point is that, you know, this is where you start as a project manager. So you're basically in the room just taking notes. So so my very first meeting, right? at that point, I was brand new to Salesforce. I should probably start with a side note of, how I got from bartending into Salesforce consulting, because everyone's probably like, that doesn't seem like a one-to-one trade. I'm a internationally competitive equestrian. Basically my whole adult life has been this constant on the hamster wheel trying to figure out how the heck to feed the horse because the thing eats a lot. And so I needed to find a career and a job that, like for bartending, you're paid for being stuck behind that bar, meaning that when you're behind the bar, you can't be making money anywhere else. I can't be cleaning my tack over there. I can't be getting my horse further along. I am stuck behind that bar. Whereas in Salesforce consulting and this virtual world, I could say have a meeting in the morning and then have a break in the middle of the day and have a meeting in the afternoon. I needed that flexibility. So just in case you're wondering, oh my God, is this bartender like qualified to talk to us about Salesforce? Yes. If anything, I am actually more qualified for that reason because not only do I come to the table with the Salesforce knowledge, but I've been in a lot of different industries. So I can actually compare this industry to a lot of other industries, but we'll save that for another video. When it comes to Salesforce consulting though, when you first go in the very first room, you're going to go in there and I'm not kidding you. Whether you are a new consultant or whether you are somebody who uses Salesforce but is shopping around for consultants, and this is specifically consultants that only speak in technobabble. Now, if you don't know what technobabble is, it's you speak in Salesforce terms and expect people to understand. Nobody gets it. I promise you, you're not alone. If you're sitting there and you're all like, I really don't get Salesforce, they have their own language and I don't know it. You're not alone. So I remember though going into I need to stop hitting this mic. I remember though going into my first Salesforce meeting, which one of the reasons I should add that it's hard to learn how to be a consultant is because you can't necessarily record all of your client calls and expect there not to be any sort of like NDA ramifications, right? Like when you're being a consultant, you have to learn how to be a consultant on the fly. Like there is no, like you can watch this video, you can watch probably a bunch of other videos on YouTube or podcasts or whatever. But at the end of the day, you got to just rip the Band-Aid off, sit in the room and be uncomfortable. And that's the first day. But I just remember being in that room and I was supposed to be taking notes. And I was like, okay, it's cool. So I'm like, this person's telling me about all this, and this. And I'm like, what did they just say? Like, I was literally sitting there like, I understood all the words. They were all English, right? Like, workflow, trigger, criteria, user, profile. Like, all these words are English. But when you put Salesforce sentences together, when you know what you're talking about, you're like, okay, I understood the words you said, but meant nothing to me. Because at the end of the day, the words and how they use them are applied to a very specific Salesforce thing. I remember the word object. Oh my God. Took me so long to understand what an object was, and we're not going to get into it in this video. I will make videos about all the Salesforce terminology. The point is, when you go into that room, you're going to be like, I need a translator just to listen to this. So I remember being like the most useless person on the planet, or at least feeling like it, because I was just sitting there like, what are we talking about? Like I really want to take notes, but the words in the order you just said don't make any sense. And so I remember coming back to my boss at the time and being like, okay, I wrote this, because I wrote exactly what they said in the order they said it, even though when I wrote it down, it made no sense. And he was like, yep, perfect. And like that meant something and that created action. And I was like, okay, like, well, so what does that mean? And, thus the journey begins. So, just so you know, that was really just a rant to, if you're a brand new Salesforce consultant, if you're a brand new business analyst, if you're a brand new project manager, just know we all started in the exact same place of going into those consulting calls and being like, is this English? Like what? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So, no, you're not alone. And if you're shopping around for a consultant, if somebody overly technobabbles to you, it's not necessary. You're going to sit there and go, wow, this person really knows what they're talking about. But how you work with a Salesforce consultant and how they help you, how you actually come to like an actual solution that works not only for you, but for them as well, is that you both have to be speaking the same language. So if a consultant comes to the table and confuses you right off the bat, I promise you'll be confused the whole time. So really, like I said, my job at this point as a senior Salesforce consultant is to translate. So I'm translating, I call it teaching calculus to fifth graders, the idea of what somebody's saying to me, which is my users hate Salesforce because of this. It's really irritating. I have to click this many times to do that. Gosh, I have to do this 27,000 times a day. Can't the computer do this for me? Like there's, they all come in different shapes and sizes. Y'all think you're just special unicorns that have these problems? No, everybody has the same problems applied in different circumstances through different context lenses for different industries, which also, like I said, I've worked in so many different industries. I can actually say that not only from a Salesforce term, but from the sheer number. Let's just put it this way. When I am curating a resume to go find a new job, because I've had to do that, not because I get fired, because I get sick of it. I have to delete stuff. I have to delete the irrelevant stuff off of my resume, because otherwise my resume would be 27,000 pages long and they'd be like, well, my 15-year-old self worked at Porta Subs for 3 years. Like, how does that help me? Which, for the record, some people have to say that kind of stuff because they've only had 3 jobs in their life. So, just saying, I'm not talking about that from an industry standpoint in that I'm in this industry. I'm talking from an industry standpoint of all industries. And so from this story I'm telling you about how you have to get started in this whole industry, is that you sit there and, we all know if you go into that room and you go, I don't know what anybody's talking about, that's not going to be a good look, right? And so what I realized is the very first skill you have to learn maybe as a consultant in general, but specifically as a Salesforce consultant, is an elegant yet trustworthy way to say, I don't know, but I will figure it out. So the reality is every single problem that somebody comes to you with has, at least 5 to 10 solutions. And it's going to vary on what solution is the right match for this problem, partly because of complexity levels. Now, I do not want to dive into that right now because this video is already going to be long because I have so many words, but I promise you this channel is going to have a lot of stuff on it. So the point is that it's not a good look to be like, I don't fucking know. Somebody says, hey, can you help me with this? I don't know. So as a consultant, you have to first learn elegant ways to say, I'm not sure about that. So when somebody comes to you and says, I'm really irritated, I have to do 17 clicks to do this thing, can you help me? And you go, and in your brain, you're like, I don't know. But out loud, and maybe with a little bit of a poker face, which I'm not good at, by the way. You guys, I've been told that a lot. Out loud, what you say to the client is, I'm absolutely sure that I can help you with that. But I want to dig into it more and make sure that the options we have for executing that are going to actually not only solve your problem today, but solve your problem tomorrow as well. Now, if you notice, I said through many sentences, actually, I'm not sure, but I'll figure it out. So there is an elegant way to say, I have no fucking idea, but I'll go figure it out. And that, in and of itself, is what Salesforce Consulting is. That is what it is. And so that brings me to, what is the number one skill that you need to learn as a Salesforce consultant? And that is to take on the identity of a don't know it all. And I actually love this term. I took this way out of Salesforce, like my job and Salesforce and my life, and I applied it to me as a human being. Because guess what? The people who are the most successful are the ones that are resourceful. And so what being a Salesforce consultant teaches you is how to be resourceful. I can promise you, if you're like new on this journey, that you will become more resourceful. You will become a better problem solver. Humans, you know what's funny is when humans look for solutions, they find a solution and their brain goes, there are so many solutions to the one problem. So what you actually are doing is you're training your brain. When you find the first solution, your brain doesn't go, cool. Your brain goes, that I found the first one. Now let's go find the next one. So that's a skill in and of itself, but it makes you more resourceful because it makes you think outside the box. Because guess what? The first solution you find is not always the right solution. And again, like I said, we can take this and apply it to life, not just Salesforce consulting. But for the purposes of this video, I want new Salesforce consultants to understand what muscle they are growing through becoming a Salesforce consultant. And I want people who are shopping around for Salesforce consultants to understand that they need to find someone who is resourceful. You don't want to find the person that's sitting there going, I've seen it all, I've done it all, I can do all the things, pay me money. I mean, a lot of them probably say that. I personally, I say, I've seen this situation, it applies this way, I've noticed that you speak from your experience and use that to guide the next steps. But really, and this is specifically to shopping around for a Salesforce consultant, this is a partnership. Everybody likes to think, I'm just going to hand it off to somebody. I have Salesforce knowledge. Yep. But I need the context of your business in order to actually find the right solution for you. Because guess what? Over the decade of solutions I've developed, I have an arsenal. I have a whole tool belt full of solutions. But how am I going to know the exact right solution that works with you without that partnership and that context? And so if you're shopping around for a Salesforce consultant and they sound too good to be true, they probably are. So, I come to the table. I don't know it all. But what you do is you take trust, that trust that you're building up with them, the rapport, and you use that trust. I guess technically you're using that trust to buy yourself time, but really all it is you find the right way to say, I'm going to find you the right solution. I'm going to exhaust all of my resources until I do. So, as I said, the number one skill that you can develop for yourself as a new Salesforce consultant is elegant ways to come up with saying, I don't know. Because the number of times I've been put in a room where somebody asked me something and they expected me to know the answer sight unseen is absurdly high. And so the reality is, instead of me becoming a master at all the things, you become a master at one thing. I'm a master of being resourceful. So I do not know it all. And to be honest with you, that kind of vulnerability, I think, leads to trust, because everybody doesn't know it all. And the people who you do know that are a know-it-all, don't they fucking bug you? Nobody knows it all. So anyway, could go off on a rant on that one too. So what have we learned? Everybody starts in the same space, which is you sitting there being like, what the fuck is everybody talking about? Excuse my French. Not so excused. But what the heck is everybody talking about? I need a translator just to follow this conversation. Then you get to a point where you go in the room and you may be really uncomfortable, but you get comfortable, and you should come up with a few different ways to say, I don't know. Come up with a few different ways to say, I don't know, elegantly. And apply them to your life. Don't just apply them to Salesforce Consulting. Apply them to your life, because guess what? You don't know everything. And when people ask you a question, if you don't know everything, people, for whatever reason, don't like to say, I don't know. I really enjoy saying I don't know. But I've also come up with like 100 different ways to say I don't know without saying I don't know. So the moral of the story is become a don't know it all. And you know what's really funny? By becoming a don't know it all, you learn a lot. Not saying you become a know-it-all, saying you become a resourceful don't know it all. And you get to find those answers a heck of a lot faster than anybody else. So that is for this first video here, Consulting 101. So please check out the links in the description if you want to find out more information about not only Salesforce, if you're a new Salesforce consultant and you want tips and tricks, then you can't afford not to click on that link. If you're also somebody who's shopping around for Salesforce consultants, there are a ton of resources at the link for you as well. Because guess what? When you're shopping around for, if you find a good bartender, you know exactly where they are, and yeah, it's a much less expensive version of finding the right fit. Guess what happens when you don't find a good Salesforce consultant on the first time? That costs you that can cost a lot of money. I've been on projects that went over by multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you don't find the right fit, then this could have massive implications on the tail end. So for new Salesforce consultants, you can't afford not to, because I guarantee you, if you're like confused right now, that's only going to get better with time. If you are shopping around for Salesforce consultants, you can't afford not to figure out what I know. You don't have to work with me. You can't afford not to figure out what I know, though, because otherwise it's going to make your shopping a lot easier, because everybody does it. So with that being said, become a don't know it all. And guess what? P.S. P.S. It's going to increase your personal confidence indefinitely. Like, people, if anybody on here is a personal development junkie, I am. But the concept of building confidence, they always say, like, you go do stuff you're not confident at. But guess what? If you get comfortable with saying I don't know, then you never have to be confident, because your confidence comes naturally, because you are confidently saying I don't know, but I know I'm going to figure it out. So you don't actually have to be confident, and you don't actually have to know to build confidence. I know. While you're at it, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because I can promise you, this is not the last. Have a great day. Thanks again for watching and joining me on my mission to create some blatantly honest Salesforce consulting content. I'm making this not only for aspiring Salesforce consultants that want to learn what it's like, but also somebody shopping around for a Salesforce consultant. If you want to know what to look for, then you can't miss out on these videos. And if you're also in the boat where you're like, what would it even be like to work with a Salesforce consultant? What could they even provide me? Then all of these videos are for you. And there are a ton of free videos on YouTube. But before you sign up to pay a consultant $30 to $100K to help you along your Salesforce journey, I highly recommend that you gain access to this free Salesforce Captain membership site so that you can be empowered with some information before you're put in that really tough decision that you're going to have to make. As promised, here are the instructions for how you gain access to this free site. I also would like to put in a disclaimer side note that because of the nature of email marketing nowadays, I've started to detest email. So I can promise you that the email you use to sign up for this membership site will only be used for receipts. and also for you to be able to manage access to your membership site, like if you have to change your password or something like that. If you want to be notified about each new video that I post on YouTube, then go ahead and subscribe and turn on the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know. In this membership site though, there is a way to contact me directly. So the only way to be able to do that is to sign up for a seat in this site. But I have curated some questions. It's a form with some questions on it so that I can get the information I need in order to be able to help someone in this area of expertise. All you have to do is click the link in the description and also in the pinned comments. It is also it's everywhere. I'm not trying to hide it from you. So all you have to do is click that link, put in your preferred email. As stated, I promise that is your email for your stuff. I do not want to talk to you over email, but you can access me in this free membership site, and I'm able to share stuff in this site that I can't share on YouTube. For instance, like the no BS guide to a Salesforce CRM, or the mini course on how to think about automations, understanding automations, and other things along the lines of learning how to be a great system administrator, and not only that, but really how to get the bang for your buck with working with a Salesforce consultant, because I know I don't come cheap. So I would much rather help you know exactly what you need before I am tasked with the assignment of figuring it out. So I really enjoyed making all of these videos for you guys, and I hope that you've got some great value out of it. And I can't wait to see you in the Salesforce Captain membership site. See you there.